Hey everyone, so I'm Feng Zhu and thanks for watching this video. Just a quick brief intro of what I do. I'm a concept designer and art director in the entertainment industry. Worked on a lot of different games and films throughout my career, such as Transformers films were great, the Star Wars movies, and the game side worked on things like Gears of War and Command & Conquer, Blood Rain. Very long list of things because it's all fun at the end of the day. And that's briefly what I do. I draw cool stuff that ends up in you guys' hands. Dave came to me with the idea of this game that he wanted to make. And that's generally the kind of project I take on. For me, in the beginning phases of my career, it's all about the Microsofts or the EAs and these kind of things. And eventually I got to a point where I like to take projects that are interesting to me and interesting to work on, versus are they a big brand, small brand, it doesn't really matter to me at all. So when David pitched the project, I thought it was quite cool because it involved my favorite subject, which is creating worlds, creating things that are new. And those are the kind of projects I take on nowadays because I spend most of my time running my school. So projects become like a side thing for me. So I only take them because they're fun. And Planet Arkadia seems like to be one of those projects where I could design the initial phases of the world, establish different factions, the architecture. These are kind of things that then go down and define what the game will actually visually look like. And that's a lot of fun for me. So that's generally how I got involved in the beginning stages. So actually David provided me a bunch of general ideas of what he wanted, which is based on kind of Eastern architecture around on this side of the planet, such as India and Mongolia, China, these kind of areas that have very cool architecture that's rarely explored in the game industry because most fantasy games are more the European-based castle fantasy things you've seen a million times. They're fun, but yet unexplored here in Asia. So we looked at Thailand, I think looked at a bunch of these kind of ancient architectures and then established a city based on each culture. And that's a great starting point. Even for myself, I like to base my designs on reality versus complete just randomness because I think the player themselves cannot relate to randomness. We're all humans, we're all seeing things that are like castles, we think things that are jungles in Thailand. These are kind of things when you bring into a game and bring in just a slight different twist to it. The audience automatically knows what they're looking at versus you just do we could do Marshmallow World with green blobs and all these kind of things. The player will not relate until explained to them, and that explanation could actually lose a majority of the players. So this kind of design philosophy is very, very proven and works quite well in the entertainment industry. For me, I think the Thailand one, I think Loi is called, very Thai influence because for myself, I love that contrast. I like it when human things are contradicting with nature, or metal and wood and these kind of things. So this kind of world had a lot of that. It had a lot of jungles and also areas I've traveled many times myself. Australia, went over to Queensland, and here in Asia, went up to Malaysia and Vietnam, and all the surrounding countries have this kind of very ancient type of architecture, and the natural world is almost growing into it, like the moth, the plants, the roots, they kind of mingle. And lots of these architecture then take that into account and build the structures around the trees, for example. So this kind of world that we design actually follows that. So in the game, I think it's very interesting for players to see that develop. So during the production phase of Arkadia, the most interesting for me on any project is always day one, which is finding the look of each world. And that way we can explore different looks, different architectures. And then second part of that, then developing that to something that's actually production ready. That can we actually build it where the players have fun? Because for me, the initial stage is all about the visual first. Can the players actually play in it? Can the geometry be built? That's secondary in the first few days of design because you can't sacrifice such coolness for engineering because engineers are smart too and 3D programmers are smart and 3D artists are smart. Sometimes you have a cool design, maybe it's a giant sphere or something like that. It's very hard to build in Polygon, but somebody will figure it out, especially in today's gaming industry where the engines are so powerful that they could render pretty much whatever we design. So I let all that kind of stuff sit on the side. So we do that. But however, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, once the design is chosen, so like for example in Arkadia where these jungle and these kind of things, we start thinking, okay, how do we save polygons? So maybe the Thailand world inspired one Loi, for example, the architecture maybe is not round. We make it kind of blocky, kind of like the real world, a little bit like that. So that way the plans and geometry could be spent on all the jungle leaves and things, and the buildings themselves are less polygon heavy. So I enjoy both sides of production. I love the creativity side, and then can we then make the creative thing work in the context of which one? Okay, so for me, I think it's always fun to see when a project launches, because all the stuff you do in pre-production, all the concept art do is quite meaningless unless the project launches. Right now, our Planet Arcadia looks like it's on route to be launched with a lot of cool stuff and cool content. And it's also an interesting area of game that I'm tracking personally a lot, which is this kind of MMO building system that's quite different from the traditional way of doing things. Now, I think in the future, a lot of games are going to run in this kind of route because it's one of the, I guess, easier ways to bring in the players, to have not just gameplay, but somehow there's money involved, which at the end of the day is what most players enjoy as well, right? Getting loot and then somehow having some kind of reward. So it'll be interesting to see how these cities and the things we design can influence the players to stay in the world that's created by Planet Arcadia, and see how it goes.